It looks like we've got a good group together now, so let's go ahead and get started. My name's Cecilia. I'm the product marketing lead here at Crazy Egg. And thank you again for joining us for a chat all about snapshots. If you have any questions or want to learn something more specific, please do again let us know in the chat box. We'll try to cover as many questions as we can before the end of this 30-minute session. And now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Amy and JL.
Hi guys, my name is Amy. I'm the COO and Head of Customer Success here at Crazy Egg. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and walk you guys through creating a snapshot. So you can either, Cecilia, you guys can all see my screen, correct?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. You can either create a snapshot by clicking this link up here or going to the right up here. You have the options of creating multiple snapshots at once in bulk, where you would enter in the URLs there, or you can individually enter them here. I'm going to go through the process of setting up just one. You put in your URL. Name your snapshot. Then you have the option of having us create 3 snapshots at once. So that would be for your desktop, tablet, and mobile devices. Or if you specifically want to just target one snapshot and then combine the data across all 3 device types onto one report, you would select these toggles here to include these. So that would be good if you have like the content is very similar and it's not so dynamic on like the tablet or mobile, and that's when you would combine it. But if your content is different on your mobile, then you would definitely separate those out and create all 3 for the different device types. And then you have the option of starting the snapshot immediately or schedule it at a future date and time, and then how long you want it to track for. So the default 60 days, 25,000 visits, or you can customize that and set an end date and the number of visits as well. So let's say you want to track it up to 50,000, you just adjust that there. And then under the advanced settings, you have the options of blocking your pop-ups. Like if you have an element that appears or a modal that appears a little while after the page loads, you can omit those pop-ups, as well as specific elements. If we're automatically in the screenshot having capturing like a pop-up, you can block that here. And then you can, if your site has a lot of traffic and you want to sample like every 1 in 100 visitor, for example, you would put that here. And so this is so, let's say here you set it up for 50,000 visits, but if your site is getting traffic like, millions of page views a day, your snapshot would end like within hours, right? So then you would adjust the sampling ratio to let the snapshot run longer. And then the delay timer option here. If it takes a while for like your page to fully load all the content, you can increase this wait time so that we do capture the full content. And then for the tracking options, there's default tracking options, or you can customize those. So the default would be like track both HTTP and HTTPS. If you only wanted to do one for some reason, you could specify that here. Same with subdomains if you want to target all of them versus be specific. Paths, query strings, and hashes as well. So usually the default settings are fine for most people. But again, you do have the option to customize that. Using a wildcard, if you have like internal product pages that have like the same overall template or layout and you want to see how that template is performing, instead of tracking like one specific product page, you'd set up a wildcard so that we track all the product pages into one report. And you'd set up a wildcard pattern here. So this would be like, let's say it was, and this will show you if it matches. So like, let's say it's like product 23. This coming back green shows you that this pattern that you entered up here would match, product page 23. And regex is another option of customizing multiple URLs into one snapshot. It's a little bit more complex of a pattern versus wildcard, but that just gives you that extra control. And then the track by name option is if you're running an A/B test or the URL structures vary quite a bit, and you want to let us know, instead of matching by URL pattern, to just look for this extra code snippet on the page, and that's how we know when to match the data for that page into a specific snapshot. I'm going to pause right there and look through the questions. Is there anything specifically around the setup that anyone had questions on? JL, are you seeing anything come through the chat?
Nope, everyone is good. Oh, 1 minute, there might be a message. So John has said that he's having some issues with mobile snapshots being the correct height. It was cut off. So John, with the mobile snapshots, we do have a page length limit that can be captured. However, depending on where it's being cut off, I'd actually recommend using page camera as opposed to creating the snapshot the traditional way that Amy's been showing.
Yep, so I can get into the page camera. So let's say, so when you set up a URL to track, our system will kind of automatically go in and take like a screenshot image of your page. But let's say for whatever reason, like if it's a page that's behind a login or part of a multi-step process and we're just not capturing the correct page, what you can do is we have a Chrome extension called Page Camera that you can install. And what that does is it's just this little like Crazy Egg balloon widget that shows up in your browser. And you just navigate to your website. So now I'm on like quicksprout.com/blog. You hit that little balloon and then you tell it which device type you want to capture. And then you just hit the capture button. And this is like our system kind of manually going through and capturing that image. And so I just hit that capture button. It went through, did its thing, and then you just hit continue. And then it'll walk you back into the rest of the setup process. But now it'll use that image that it just manually captured right there. So John, you can try that. And see this rest of the setup flow is what I previously went through, but now like the image was already captured for you. Any other questions specifically to the setup? Someone is asking, is a wildcard feature open to everyone? Yeah, everything that I'm going over is the functionality and the features are available to like all accounts. I'm going to go over blocking IP addresses while we wait for other questions to trickle in. So under the options here on the left, you have the blocking section where you can enter in the IP addresses of any IPs that you want us to block from being tracked. So within your reports, if you don't want your own visits to be tracked or people from your company, you can enter in the IP addresses here. And there's also some granular functionality where if it's a specific snapshot, like let's say for the home page or I don't know, like your about page, you specifically don't want your visits to be tracked just for those specific pages, you can enter in IPs for individual snapshots as well. And this under this option section is also where you would find the page camera that I was talking about. Here it's saying it's already installed, but otherwise you'd have the link to download it here. And there's advanced functionality of like our API key here. You can check your installation and you have access to adding and removing sites. Any other questions around setup before I jump into maybe like the results?
There's a couple of questions, Amy. So one question is around if you do an update to your website, what's the approach you should take with your snapshot or your page? The second question sort of related to that is pages that are responsive, how does that get captured?
Awesome. Okay, so let me start with the first one. So if you've made a change to your website, you know, the image that we use in the background of like the reports. Let me pull one up. The image is going to be when we create the snapshot. When you first go through that setup process, we go in and capture the image. So it's like a one-time image, and that image will always kind of stay the same. If you've made minor tweaks to your website and you just kind of want an updated image to be used in the background, what you can do is under this actions gear, there is an option for, oh, this one's completed. It needs to be running. Switch over to running. So while the snapshot is running, there is an option for refresh this snapshot, and that'll go in and recapture the image to the latest version, and then any existing data. So in this example, there's 57 visits that were already tracked. That data will be reprocessed against the latest image. So if you made a minor change, that's what you would do. If you have redesigned it quite drastically, or if you want to keep this, let's say these 57 visits that were already tracked, you want that data separated, you would just click on this actions, and then there's an option for duplicate this snapshot, and that would start a new one, and it would stop this one, and it would start a new one from scratch. And so then now you'd have like the new design as a new snapshot to compare against.
So Amy, one of the questions why you were explaining that is about losing previous data on a refresh. And that was from Cooper and Group in Atlanta. So the answer to that one, if you've made a lot of changes in updating a particular page that you have a snapshot on, the recommendation would be to not do a refresh of the snapshot, but instead complete that snapshot. So pause it so it stops and create a brand new one. If you're using Page Camera, you won't have the option to refresh the snapshot. You will have to stop that snapshot and recreate it using Page Camera.
Yeah, and I can touch base on what's happening with the data. So all the click data that comes through, we're visually kind of matching up with the elements that, you know, we have captured. So if they happen on this heading, you know, the click data would be here. But anything that we weren't able to match up gets placed into this list view under not visible. So if you do a refresh, and let's say like, and this is a blog post, the blog constant, like, you know, new content is added and old ones are kind of pushed off the page. So if you did do a refresh and any clicks that were originally kind of on, let's say like, you know, this blog post, this heading, this image would now get, as the image gets replaced, that those click data would be placed into the not visible section of the list view, and the clicks that correspond to the new elements would be on the visible section. And so I can quickly run through the rest of these reports. Do you see any other questions related to setup, JL?
I'm getting clarification on one other question, but the other question that's come in is just about the sites that have responsive design on them. When our system is capturing that, at what point does it stop, or it looks like mobile is going like a desktop view? I'm thinking that really should be redirected back to support, yes?
Yeah, I didn't quite follow the question. So they're saying that specifically their mobile view looks like a desktop view?
Yeah.
Yeah, if they can help, please email into help@crazyegg.com and we can look into that. Awesome. So for the reports, for the snapshots, you primarily have 5 reports. You have your heat map, scroll map, confetti, overlay, and list view. So this is the heat map. You'll see exactly where people are clicking. The brighter the area, the more clicks. Clicking anywhere on the page, we'll zoom it out. So in this example, you can see a bunch of clicks happening in this top header, navigation, in the search area, and a little bit of clicks here. The scroll map will show you how far down people are kind of scrolling on the page. We'll show you where the average fold is. So if people are on laptops with smaller screen sizes, that average fold would be higher up versus on desktop, the average fold would be lower down. So that'll kind of show you where to place your CTAs and the most important parts of your page, like the elements that you want people to kind of be able to see and focus on. Again, clicking anywhere, you'll be able to see the full page at once. So here, most people are kind of losing interest around this area where it's like green and bluish. And then in your confetti report, this is going to pinpoint exactly where all of the clicks take place, and we're able to track a bunch of information about the visitor. So their refer, their search engine, search term, country, and all of these will be color-coded based on the segmentation. So you can see that from the US, there's like 3,800 clicks that happened versus Spain had 151. And you can also highlight and compare those. So if I want to compare Spain versus Canada visitors and how they're engaging with the page, you can see like the click patterns between those two segmentations. Next is an overlay report. This report is going to show you per element the number of clicks. So if I want to see how many clicks occurred on this search element here, there's 377 clicks. And then you can also drill down into those visitors and see similar stuff to the confetti report, whether they were new versus return, the refer, search term, search engine. And so that'll drill down just for the visitors that clicked on this specific element. And these are color-coded as well, where the reds are going to be more clicks and the blues are going to be the least number of clicks on those elements. And then the list report, which I quickly touched base on earlier, the visible section is going to be all the clicks that were represented in the other reports, like the heat map, confetti, and overlay. And then the not visible section is going to be clicks that we weren't able to visually show you. So anything on dynamic content, drop-down elements, pop-up modals, stuff like that. All of those clicks would happen in here. And sometimes you can have the most number of clicks happening on not visible elements. So it's definitely important to kind of take a look at the list view as well. Both is a combination of both of those.
So Amy, we have a question that's come in about Google campaigns. If it's showing under the confetti as unknown, what does that mean?
Yep, so that, like in this example, there was no, campaign running, so all the clicks are coming up as unknown because there was no, Google campaign running on this page. But if you were, running ads and sending ad traffic to a page that you have a snapshot on, we would be pulling in data for the campaign name, campaign source, medium, and term, and then you'd be able to segment the information about the visitors from those.
And then a clarified question on the Google campaigns is if they've set it up with the UTM codes, but it's still showing as unknown, that would be because the information hasn't transferred into the snapshot report. So there's something wrong with the setup from the UTM codes.
Correct.
The other question is about single page applications.
My favorite. Yes. I mean, is it an existing customer that is having trouble? We could probably have them email in to help, but we could take a look. But with the single page apps, the URLs are not changing as much, so it's definitely harder to kind of automatically set up your site to be tracked. So you do need to use a track by name option that I was kind of referencing in this setup, where here you go track by name, and you would enter in this, add this specific code snippet. I mean, it would vary by, you would change the name, and so the code snippets would change for the various segments. But let's say like your initial page is like your home page, and then like you have a second portion that shows up, and even though the URL doesn't change, you need to add this code where the part of the page triggers to change the content. So let's say it's like the second step or the second part of the page, you would add in this specific code snippet. And so our system would know that when this code snippet is triggered, that's when we start tracking that page. And then you'd also need to use the page camera application to set up those individual kind of pages or portions of your page. Any other questions around the reporting or the setup?
One question that's come in is it possible to compare snapshots?
Yes. Let me- Okay, so I'm pulling up this report. So up at the top left here, you have this compare link, and then you would pull up the snapshot that you want to compare it with. And then that would pull it up side by side. So this would be really useful if you're either like running an A/B test and you pull up like your two variations side by side and you see how each one is kind of performing, or even if it's not like a live A/B test and you have you've made a redesign, so you can see how like the previous one is comparing to the new one. You can also pull up like mobile versus desktop, so it could be like two that are currently running, and you just want to see how like the desktop traffic is engaging with your site versus your mobile traffic is engaging with your site. And so the example that I compared it with is not the best, but you kind of get the point of how they would be shown side by side. You can switch over to the various reports. So you'd see like all 5 reports kind of side by side and have similar confetti segmentation, and you can tweak that and see how all the various targets are performing. Reports by date range. We have a share functionality here where you can copy and paste this link to someone else and share it. They don't have to log in. It was just like a publicly accessible share link to share your reports. You can export the reports as well, and that'll save PDFs onto your computer. Any other questions coming through about the reports?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch up on the questions. So one of the questions is about like the mobile device on the scroll map or even the heat map. Are we tracking clicks and the swipes of people doing the fingers, or what is happening?
Sorry, could you repeat that, JL? The mobile clicks, are we capturing swipe?
Yeah, when they swipe with their fingers, so like a resize or they move something on the page.
Yep, so with the mobile snapshots, the browser is sending us information back on the interaction that the person had with that page. So, if they're kind of swiping up and down in order to kind of scroll the page, then that comes back to us as a scroll. And then if they are tapping with their finger on an element to kind of take an action, that comes back as a click. Because a mobile device, even though like you're using your finger moving around, it knows what interactions you're trying to take, and that gets passed back to us. Cool. I think there was a question about visits resetting. So the visits reset on the 1st of the month. So depending on what plan you're on. So like, for example, the basic plan has 30,000 visits. The Pro would have 50,000 visits a month that is tracked, and everyone's visits reset on the 1st of the month. And you can always upgrade, at any time if you run out of visits.
Another question that's come in, Amy, is are visits only tracked to specific snapshots?
Are visits only tracked to specific snapshots? Is that what you're asking? Sorry, I didn't quite follow. as opposed to the whole website. Yes, so we are only tracking the visits. As you set up a page to be tracked, and you say, you know, track this page for X amount of visits, that's the number of visits that we would track. So we're only counting your monthly allocation based on what we've tracked. So you could be getting like 1 million page views a month, but you know, if you set up these snapshots to track up to 100,000, that's what you're kind of charged upon.
The last question to come in, Amy, is about pending status and duplicate snapshots. The duplicate error or multiple.
Yep, so when a brand new snapshot is created, I don't have an example here, but initially the status would be pending, and as soon as we've tracked at least one visit, then that status changes over into running, so that it's kind of clear to you guys that everything is set up correctly. You can run a script installation check by going in this drop down here and then checking installation. And that'll run through, and at times this will come back as a failed of multiple snapshots. I believe that's what you're asking, correct, Jael?
Yes.
Multiple. Yep. So then if this comes back as a fail with multiple, it's detecting multiple snapshots, then that means that you have multiple snapshots set up for the same exact URL and the same device. So if, for example, you had your homepage already running, let's say you created that last week, and then now you go in and click on add a new snapshot and create another one for your homepage this week, data only goes to one snapshot at a time, and the one that was created first takes precedence. So all the data would be going to the one that was, you know, created last week, and the new one that you just created today would just stay in the pending status because, you know, there's no data going to it. And then running that installation check would say multiple snapshots. So you have to either delete the new one that you just did if you want to continue tracking data against the old one, or you just stop the old one, like pause the old one. You just go here and you know, hit like pause the snapshot, and then the new one would start running.
Hey folks, we're actually just about out of time, but thank you again for such a lively session. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 1, and you'll also get, you know, email invites to upcoming live office hours, so feel free to stop over again. If you have any questions in the meantime, please email us at help@crazyegg.com. There will be a follow-up email where we'll send the recording of the session and a few resources to help you along. Thank you again so much for attending. This was truly wonderful, and we look forward to working with you.